Good evening, everybody. It's now 6:30. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Planning and Land Use Committee for November 6th, 2023, excuse me. I'd first like to acknowledge with respect that we're meeting on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, and we're honored to have the opportunity to build strong working relationships with the people of the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. This evening, we have regrets from Councillor Jansen and Committee Member Gendall, both of whom we hope sincerely are sunburnt in the tropical destinations in which they regale themselves. I would ask for a motion on point 2.1 to approve the minutes from the previous meeting, or for this agenda, sorry, excuse me, for this evening. Got a motion from Kaityln. Adoption of the minutes from the Planning and Land Use meeting held October 3rd. Can I get a motion to approve those? Thank you, James. At this point in the agenda, I would ask if there's anyone for public participation. Seeing no hands, is there anyone online that would speak at this point or later on, I assume, Amanda? Yeah, okay, great. So let's move into point 5, new business. I would call upon Daniel Lake, planning technician.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, committee members. I'm here to answer any questions regarding agenda item 5.1, Omnibus amendments to sign bylaw number 60. It focuses on minor housekeeping amendments, primarily the addition of zones currently missing from the sign bylaw. Again, I'm here to answer any questions about it if you need. Thanks.
Just put it to the committee if anyone has any questions on this item. Okay, seeing none, I think, Daniel, the absence of the rotating sign lobby seems to indicate where we're headed on this one. So I would then ask the committee if there's anyone that would like to put forward a motion on this particular agenda item. And sorry, what are you moving, Kaityln, to advance? Excellent. Okay, we have a motion. Those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate it.
Thank you, committee members. Take care.
Okay, moving on to 5.2, Kelsea Fielden, planner regarding the OCP amendment on Olympic View local area plan amendment.
Hello, yeah, I'd like to just acknowledge that I'd like to excuse myself from this presentation discussion due to the fact that there's a perceived conflict of interest with me working with the Olympic View on a different phase of the project.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that. And my error, I was aware that Michael was planning on recusing himself and I abruptly moved into the item. So apologies, Michael, and thank you for doing so. While we wait for Michael to head out, Kelsea, I will turn it over to you to deliver the report. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this report is a staff-led amendment to the Olympic View area plan to guide future development of the lands. Staff are recommending Olympian Way be classified as a collector road on the street network map in the OCP to reflect the 2020 endorsement of the Olympic View cross sections. You can see that referenced as Road A and Road C on the PowerPoint up above. The intention of classifying Olympian Way is to add policies outlining the location of driveway accesses for future anticipated development of the lands. These policies reflect similar policies within the Latoria South and the Beachlands area plans for a cohesive driveway policy within our master planned communities. The map is highlighting the changes to the OCP, outlining the expected Olympian Way extension. A public hearing will be scheduled if the bylaw receives first and second reading. It is a slightly different process than what we've seen in rezonings. Staff have also been in communication with the property owner, and they are here virtually tonight. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you, Kelsey. Turn it over to the committee for questions. Anyone? I don't see any questions. Quick question: were the developers planning on presenting, or just here to respond to questions?
They were here to respond to questions and
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Quick question for you, Kelsey. When I look at the Olympian Way map, am I wrong in thinking that some of those homes exist and have driveways accessing today, or?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. That is correct, that there is a current subdivision that is active, and there are about 35 homes that do have existing driveways.
Okay, so just for clarity, then we're speaking about any future development along there. Those would be sort of grandfathered in. Is that how we approach it, or?
Yes, that's correct, for future development of the lands.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, seeing no further questions, I would ask if anyone on the committee would like to put forth a motion on this item. James. Oh.
I'll move that we approve that or recommend to council for adoption.
Thank you, James. All those in favor? Unanimous. Approved. Thank you, Kelsey. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on to item 5.3, Kaityln Suzuki, planning on land use bylaw number 151, 2023 Omnibus Amending Bylaw. I see Jasmine is stepping in.
Yes, Kaityln is also on a hot holiday somewhere. So I am stepping in to present on her behalf. I do not wish for her to be sunburned, but to be enjoying her time off, well-earned time off.
Yes, I'm sorry. I think it's the time change that got to me, Jasmine. Looking at the darkness, we were talking about that at the outset, and there is an element of jealousy at play here. So we'll wish her well. Yes.
So I'm presenting on behalf of Kaityln. It's a housekeeping amendment. We do an annual housekeeping amendment of our land use bylaw. We're integrating within these. We have a presentation that goes with these, and we're integrating, I believe, 30 plus minor housekeeping amendments. The vast majority of them are just administrative errors, cleaning up some of the language, streamlining definitions, and reformatting some of the way in which we speak to some of the terminology within the bylaw. There are a few maybe more complicated amendments that I have highlighted through the presentation that I would like to explain just for clarity, as it may not be as clear in our report when we need to be super concise. So the high definition in the city of Colwood, we have one high definition. The way in which is worded and formatted in our bylaw, it appears as though we have three separate definitions. The reality, we have one definition, and we have a number of properties that have been, that fall under an exemption clause where the height has been defined differently. There's very legitimate reasons for which this was done. It's former mining sites where grade, of course, it's no longer reflective of what natural grade could have once been. So for those type of properties, as well as Triangle Mountain, the definition exemption allows them to measure height from finished grade as opposed to average existing grade as it is in most of the rest of Colwood. So we're just reformatting and making it clear for people what definition applies, which is one definition unless you are in those three areas of Colwood. One of the other amendments that is a bit more technical and hard to explain in a small table is a retaining wall definition. So you can see the current diagram is what explains what our definition is intending to do. Problematic, where we are showing property line, so PL stands for property line. So a footing, of course, could never go onto your neighbor's property. So it's just kind of cleaning up the diagram and doing a better job of explaining what we meant. We want a maximum 1-to-1 ratio, not a minimum, so that we are terracing with the appropriate spacing. So just some cleaning up of the language to better describe what we intended. Secondary suites and accessory dwelling units. We have a section in the bylaw in the general regulations that explains accessory dwelling units and secondary suites. In addition to that, every single zone has within it an entitlement to have or not have accessory dwelling units. And what we're finding out is that oftentimes, while it's permitted in one section, it's not listed within the zone. And so it's just creating a bit of confusion. So we're cleaning that up and reflecting the entitlement of those uses in the zones. And that is consistent with the OCP bylaw, as well as the changes that council endorsed for accessory dwelling units earlier this year. The RBCD3 zone. The current map that accompanies this zone is the one on the, I guess, your right-hand side, your left-hand side. And it's wrong. It's the original RBCD3 map, but ever since a number of parcels have been rezoned out of that zone into different zones. When you look at Schedule A of the bylaw, that reflects accurate zoning. And you can see there's only 2 properties that are left with that designation. So we're cleaning that up and reflecting, streamlining the uses. This is the same for the RBCD3A. That really only applies to very few properties at this point. And so we're consolidating the uses. Originally, there were like 8 areas within it, and now we're down to 1. So we're just cleaning that. And I believe those are the most complex of the housekeeping amendments that we just wanted to walk you through to help you understand. It is minor, it's housekeeping, but it gets a bit technical and complex on a few of the pieces that we're trying to clean up. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Yasmin, appreciate it. Personally, for me, I think the highlight was the retaining wall diagram shift. It's like we got rulers or something, and it what a difference. But I mean, I joke about it, but things like the retaining wall footing, and that suddenly you're creeping into your neighbor's property, and those matter in real life, as we've seen. That and having some clarity on the height requirements. I know we've come across that before with the steep slopes and roof lines and what that means. So I think all of these things make a lot of sense. I will turn it over to questions. I see James is waiting here.
Oh no, that was from my previous.
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't turn you off there.
A hot mic.
I will look to see if there are any questions. Okay, Michael.
Thank you. Yeah, I do have just a question. It's more of an understanding, and it happens to be related to the retaining wall question as well. The maximum 1-to-1 height ratio, is that intended for the 1-to-1 height being topped out at versus, I know like if you go the other way, then that's fine, right? You got a shallower wall, but I'm just wondering, we do live on a lot of houses in the city called what are on the side of the mountain, and there's hilly ones. So that I do understand the 1-to-1 ratio makes sense, and the height of 1.2 also makes sense from an engineering point of view. But I'm just wondering as well whether there's been exceptions to this, or can homeowners challenge this?
I mean, they can come forward for a development variance permit if they have, and yeah, we have reviewed and entertained variances to the regulations depending on many circumstances. The height restriction makes it very difficult to develop or create entrances to parkades, etc. And there may be circumstances where the exposed portion of a retaining wall can be mitigated or is not fronting onto a street or creating a massing blank wall that becomes problematic. So there's always a development variance permit route. Up until now, I would say maybe some of the ambiguity of our regulations when we, the way in which we have it worded currently, where it's minimum 1-to-1, it means you can make a steeper retaining wall in practicality, that the terracing can get closer, which is the opposite of what we're trying and intending to do. So there might be instances where some people have caught on to that technicality, and therefore some retaining walls are, I'm gonna say, not following the intent, what we meant the regulation to say, but they are doing what it says.
Right.
And so that's why we're trying to clean it up, because in most instances, we can reflect on the OCP and say, well, the intention was for these not to lead to
Massive walls.
Massive walls, even though clearly we got the terminology wrong from maximum to minimum, big difference. So yeah, there might be some circumstances where there's non-conforming structures out there.
No, and I get the intent, and I do understand the intent is not to get those massive wall type conditions, and it's not what I'm recommending. But sometimes you do get yourself in a situation where you're limited by land or whatever. I just want to know if there is some flexibility in those odd situations. But at that point, you're getting in a different realm of retaining walls, so you would need an engineer at that point. So.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, and if I just speak to that, I think, we've seen, I believe there's one coming forward pretty soon with a minor variance request on a retaining wall. And I think the option is always there for a proponent to come forward with a variance request and make the case for it. So it doesn't entirely prevent it. But, looking at the OCP, there is sort of a mandate or guideline that we minimize a lot of the sort of blasting, leveling, large wall build, like trying to be more consistent with the natural form, so that I think this kind of, it's relatively minor, but feeds into that to some extent. I would see if there's any other questions from anybody on this one. No? Okay, well, thank you, Yasmin. Appreciate it. Then ask if there's anyone who would like to make a motion on item 5.3. Oh, I think Michael beat you by a hair, so I'll give it to him. So Michael, are you moving adoption? Or?
Yes.
Okay, I'll mix it up. All of those opposed. Ooh, okay, that looks like unanimous in favor. All right. Little trick from the mayor there. He's not, he's still watching. So that one's for you, Mr. Mayor. So on that note, that brings us to the end of the current agenda. So I would then seek a motion to adjourn. Motion. We've got motions. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. I know it was a lot of reading for some relatively quick things. So appreciate the effort. And thanks to staff and everybody who was here this evening as well. Thank you.